Western India has long had extensive trade with the Middle East, across the Arabian Sea, and even with far-away Europe. Several Roman writers mention the trade with India. Pliny the Elder writes in 77 BC that Roman coffers were being emptied for buying too many fine textiles from India. There are several BC and early AD period inscriptions in Buddhist caves in Maharashtra which record the donations of sculptures by Greek devotees. The art of Rajasthan and Gujarat in Western India over the ages reflects the cosmopolitan heritage of this region. The sculptures of the 6th century, found at Shamalaji in Gujarat, display a rich synthesis of styles. The languid and graceful postures continue the tradition established in the earlier Gupta period. The treatment of the heavy folds of drapery recalls the art of Gandhara in the northwest of the subcontinent. The remains of the 6th century temple at Gop in Saurashtra recall the high standards of artistic achievement of Gujarat. Across the deserts of Rajasthan were several trade routes which connected the Indian subcontinent with the Middle East. The prosperity of Rajasthan and its flowering culture are seen in the remains of the temples. On the plinth of the Harsat Mata temple in the village of Abaneri near Jaipur are fine sculptures of the 8th century. The graceful figures, gentle expressions, and the delicacy of carving are remarkable. "16 temples of the 8th and 9th century stand at Ossian, which would have been a flourishing city in its time. A Surya Temple here of the 8th century displays pan-Indian traditions. There is a magnificent depiction of Mahishasur-Mardani, Durga killing the demon buffalo. There is a sense of movement and activity in the figures of this period, which is a departure from the repose and stillness of the Gupta period tradition. A number of 8th century temples here are dedicated to Harihara, who represents a synthesis of Vishnu and Shiva. The fine carvings convey the liveliness and animation of the art of this period. There is a Jaina temple made originally in the 8th century at Ossian. There are exquisite sculptures here. In Indic philosophy, the beauty and grace of the art is of fundamental importance. It is to awaken the grace which is within us and to keep us reminded of the divinity which underlies all of creation. The Mata temple made high on a hill at Ossian is of the 8th century. The sculptures from its earliest periods have a lilting grace which transports us. As in the art of this period everywhere, from Jaina reliefs at Kalugumalai in Tamil Nadu to the Hindu temples of Orissa, Here too, we meet many representations of rearing leogryphs. These fearless creatures remind us of the courage within us, with which we must face the obstacles on our path towards knowledge. In the 10th century, the Rajput clan of the Solankis came to power in the Gujarat region. Close to their capital at Patan are a number of temples which were probably made in the late 10th century. The Neelakanta Mahadeva temple at Sunak is a fine example of the styles which were developing in that period. Though this is a small structure, it is lavishly sculpted both on the inside and outside. It reminds us of the profusely sculpted temples of this period at Khajuraho. The temple is made in the North Indian style with a shikhara over the shrine. This resembles the clustered peaks of a mountain. While the final knowledge is to be encountered in the Garbhagriha within, the walls of the temple provide manifestations of the truth in many forms. All that there is in the world around us is presented on the temple walls. This is to remind us that it is all but a manifestation of the divine. The style of the Solanki temples is seen at its grandest in the temple to Surya, the sun, at Modhera. The temple is of the early 11th century and was made by King Bhima I. In front of it, to the east, is a large tank with flights of steps leading down. Small shrines are made at regular intervals on the descent, creating a marvelous design. Water tanks are often made next to a temple, and this is the grandest example in the subcontinent. A sculpted torana or gateway is made above the tank at the entrance to the temple complex. The temple is one of the most profusely carved seen anywhere. It is believed that the detailed sculptures of the temples of Gujarat reflect the exquisite wood carving traditions for which the region is well known. Indeed, one can scarcely find an inch of wall surface which has not been transformed by the sculptor's chisel. Unfortunately, the stone has been considerably weathered and damaged over the years. However, the original beauty of the sculpture is still apparent. The profusion of sculpture here reflects pan-Indian traditions at this time. A grand torana, or gateway of a temple of the early 12th century, survives at Vadnagar, not far from Patan. Here too, the detailed and fine work is reminiscent of carvings on wood, which is much easier to work upon. A recently excavated site at Umta, near Patan, shows what would have been a large and impressive temple complex. The style of the sculptures here shows that it may have been built between the 11th and 13th centuries during the rule of the Solankis. Intricately carved door frames show the preference that the Jainas have for white marble. Along with the images of deities and Tirthankaras, One sees here the figures of beautiful maidens or Nayikas who communicate the gentleness and lilting grace of the sculptures of this period. While the king made the temple to the sun, his wife, Udaymati, made a marvelous stepwell dedicated to Vishnu at Patan. As we walk down the steps to the water, on either side is a world of sculpted forms. It is a journey similar to the parikrama or circumambulation of the temple. The walls and pillars present the world of forms around us. We see these here in their true context as a manifestation of the divine who lies at the end of our journey through the stepwell. Many images of Nayikas or beautiful women flank the deities made in the niches. They are shown in similar postures and activities to those seen at Khajuraho and later at Konarak. We see Nayikas playing with a ball, wearing an anklet, and in so many other acts. Here the faces are gentle. They are not shown as impersonal forms, but are infused with an inward look and a deep warmth. Our response to the beauty and grace of the figures awakens the finest within us and prepares us in our journey. At the deep end of the well, far from the noise and clamour of the material world, we face Vishnu. He rests on the serpent Shesha, dreaming the world into existence. The image represents a fine philosophic concept. Shesha means that which remains. The serpent is also called Ananta or endless. The style of the sculptures continues the infinite gentleness of the ancient art. It also displays the angularity and sharp features which mark the figures of the medieval tradition in India. We see this in the Buddhist art of Nalanda in eastern India, reflecting the vigour of intellectual developments. In western India, the medieval idiom is developed further in the coming centuries in a profusion of Jaina manuscript paintings. Among the communities which prospered in western India were the Jainas. They did not believe in warfare or any kind of violence. They mainly engaged in peaceful trade. The trade routes that crossed Gujarat and Rajasthan made it a region where the Jainas flourished. In Indic beliefs, it is most important to take time off from one's worldly attachments to seek peace of mind and the stillness within. Over the centuries, the Jainas made many places of pilgrimage, which were located far from the cares of the mundane world. In the Jaina faith, the principle of non-violence has no limits. The belief is in the passage through life in a detached manner. We live in a world of illusory forms, and we must not be attached to them. Duties must be performed in the world, yet with the spirit of a distant observer, with detachment. Jaina art carries its philosophic beliefs faithfully and presents one of the most abstracted schools of Indian art. The simplicity and uniformity of the figures may not always invite admiration of the artist's work. However, it does convey the inner peace and dignity of the Tirthankaras, as well as conveying their strength. There is a purity of philosophic belief maintained by the Jainas. They pay homage to the Tirthankaras, those who have made the great crossing and conquered the fear of death. Yet, they do not do so because of any hope that the great being might assist a worshipper. They are beyond the reach of prayer, and there is no possibility of their help. They are beyond all actions and absolutely at peace. While King Bhima I built the temple to the sun and Queen Udaymati made the stepwell dedicated to Vishnu, the king's minister Vimala constructed a marble temple at Mount Abu. He built this to honor Adinatha, the first Jaina saint. This marvelous tradition of the coexistence of all faiths has been seen since the earliest stupas and temples in the subcontinent. Several Jaina temples were made here in succeeding centuries. We see the tradition of temples made of white marble continued at the Chaumukha temple at Ranakpur in present-day Rajasthan. The temple is nestled amidst low hill ranges far from any town. It was made in 1439 AD and, in an unusual instance, the architect's name Deepaka is inscribed on a pillar here. There are 80 domes covering the structure, which are supported by 400 pillars. These are elaborately carved, and it is said that no two columns are alike. There is abundant light coming through gaps between the canopies and from courtyards. This highlights the fine carvings and the effect of the spacious interior. The white marble all around creates the appearance of a pure land. Figures seen here present the fully developed style of Jaina sculpture. The forms of the body are abstracted to almost pure geometric shapes. The surfaces of the body are smooth, presenting a visual equivalent of the spiritual perfection of the Tirthankara. Unlike the icons, the subsidiary figures are animated. Female musicians twist and turn in space. The quality of abstraction remains. The limbs have a rod-like appearance, and there is an angular geometric quality to the poses. Every ceiling, known as a vitana or canopy of the heavens, is unique and exquisitely carved. There is a profusion of foliate and geometric motifs and figures. The work is so intricate that it has often led to the suggestion that the sculptors were paid according to how much stone they removed. Indeed, the work is deeply undercut and finely detailed. One of the greatest expressions of the Jaina faith is the temple city of Palitana on Shatrunjay Hill, 35 kilometers from Bhavnagar in Gujarat. The Adinatha temple here was first built in 960 AD and rebuilt in the year 1530. This sacred space, created on two peaks with a valley in between, displays the continuing spirit of devotion. There are more than 500 temples here, big and small, and about 7,000 images in worship. It is an enchanted world where it is the spirit within which is glorified. Jainas seek here a realm of detachment from their daily concerns and material desires.